Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. In today's video, we're going to be doing a skill-based tier list, and what I mean by that is not how hard it is to actually win with a character, but how hard it is to constantly execute their game plan throughout the entirety of a tournament, because if it was just based off how hard it was to win, Ganon is easily the hardest character in this game, and you'll have to keep in mind that this is all relative, and we're looking at this through the lens of the top level, and with that out of the way, let's just get right into it. We're not going to be talking about every single character in this video just for the sake of y'all's time, and if you're curious about a placement, you think I put your main too high or too low, just leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to give you my explanation and sub while you're down there. But the characters that we are going to be talking about are the characters that I think are teetering between the tiers. I could see them being moved up and moved down, and for our first tier, these are the easiest characters in the game. We're going to have Cloud, Samus, Game & Watch, Min Min, Ike, Young Link, Yoshi, and Palutena. The only character that I personally think could maybe be moved up is Palutena. Now, overall, she's still a very easy character, obviously, but she does have an issue where her win condition isn't super obvious, and Palutena players, especially at the top level, have to get extremely creative to catch their opponent off guard to get that killing blow. Now, everything else about Palutena, very easy. Her combo route's very easy, her advantage state's very easy, her ledge trapping's very easy. Everything else isn't super difficult, but when it comes down to getting the kill, she can struggle as a character, and you do have to be very creative, and I can see maybe her being moved up to tier because of that, and the rest of these characters, I'm fairly confident in this tier. I could see arguments for Yoshi, but especially for Game & Watch, Samus, Cloud, Min Min, Ike, they deserve to be down there. And before people freak out at me, the next tier is going to be the tier with all of the heavies. I know Ridley technically isn't a heavy, but whatever, similar archetype. And the reason that they're in their own tiers is because a majority of these heavies would go in the baby's first fighting game, but there are a couple that I could see in baby's second fighting game, and it was really difficult for me to make the distinction between the super easy heavies and the normal easy heavies, so I'm just going to put them in the tier in the middle. They're all easy, though. Next up's going to be the baby second fighting game, and this tier you're going to notice there was a lot of sword characters. None of these characters are heavy at all in Textile. They're actually super easy in Textile. I'd say out of all of them in this tier, Corrin is probably the hardest of them, just with some of her extensions, but regardless, it's nothing super hard, as well as the neutral being very strong because you just have these massive disjoints, so that's kind of what we're saying about those sword characters. Characters that I would potentially move down would be Little Mac and Terry. Now, the reason that Little Mac is here is because playing a grounded game in Smash Ultimate is incredibly difficult, and it is important for Little Mac. If you want to be good with Little Mac, you look at Peanut, that you find a good usage for your aerials. That is crucial, and if you're able to do that, the character actually gets way, way better, and by way, way better, I mean he goes from bottom 2 to maybe like bottom 4, but still that's almost double as good as he was before, and that can be a little bit difficult, but the rest of his game plan isn't super hard. He's just got really good frame data, and he's insanely quick, so you just kind of weave in and out. You could throw out a lot of moves, so I could see him being moved down, but out of respect for the aerial prowess, I'm going to have him here. And then for Terry, the only reason that Terry's here is because of inputs. He would absolutely be in Baby's first fighting game if there was no inputs on Terry, because this character is super, super easy, but I do got to give him a little bit of credit for the inputs. In terms of characters that I would move up, I think Isabelle, Villager, Mii Swordfighter, Zelda, and Pit are all in contention for that. Now, for all of those characters except for Pit, I'm just not super confident in. I think the best of those four would probably be Zelda, and by best I mean the hardest of those four, just because you do have to be very precise with her moves, as well as just rad frame data overall. So if you're gonna miss, you're probably gonna get a massive punish. So I could see Zelda in the normal hard tier, but her game plan is super simple to me, and overall I just don't a ton about the character, so we're going to leave him in there right now. If you say I'm wrong, you're probably right about that one. I'll give it up. Pit, on the other hand, though, I think Pit has some arguments to move to the normal hard tier. Again, his game plan isn't super complicated for me. The thing about Pit that makes him a little bit more difficult than the other stories in this tier is going to be the amount of options that he has. Pit has so many different combo routes that he can go down, and it's up to the Pit player to choose the correct choice, and that's just a lot of matchup knowledge because it's going to be different for specific characters. Overall, he's still a basic sword character with a basic sword character plan, but there are a little bit more layers to his combo game, so I could see him being moved. The next tier is fairly self-explanatory. The hard part is in the lab. The hard part about these characters is going to be their combo routes, and in my opinion, that's about it. There's a couple characters I could see being moved up, and it's going to be Kirby, Pac-Man, and Brawler. For Kirby, I don't know if it's just because he's bad, so he seems more difficult, which is why he's in this tier. For Pac-Man, you just need to know a lot of setups, but also he has insanely good buttons that you can rely on, and Brawler, it's kind of the exact same thing, and a majority of these characters I could see being moved down, and I want to get this out of the way right now. You have Rob, you have Kazuya, you have Steve. I agree that these are all baby's first fighting game characters, but at the top level, you need to have the tech down. You look at Rob, you need to have that gyro stuff. You need to be touch or deathing people off Kazuya. And by the way, this tier exists because of Kazuya and Pac-Man, or rather Kazuya and Ice Climbers, because I just didn't put them, so putting them here. And Steve, I do believe that you need the crazy Steve combos. Now, if you want to make the argument that these characters are in baby's first fighting game, I'm not going to disagree with you because they are easy compared to other characters because they hit so insanely hard. But at the top level, I think that you need the combo game. But outside of that, it's not too difficult. And I added two more tiers in here because I didn't really have an explanation for them in the general tiers. The first one is going to be hero in the depends on reading level. This one, fairly self-explanatory. If you can read super well, that means you can get more spells. That means you can have more better options, and you're just going to have a lot easier game plan. But if you can't read super well, you're not going to have as many spells, you're not going to have as many buffs, and it's just going to be more difficult in general. So it really just depends on how good you're at reading. Regardless, though, I wouldn't have them higher than Baby's second fighting game. You're going to have hard because there's more than one of them. Again, fairly self-explanatory. I don't think Aegis or PT's neutral is super difficult. I don't think any combo routes they have are insane, especially compared to some of the harder characters. But it is difficult to switch characters on a dime. You need to be doing this constantly with both of these characters, which isn't super easy. Most people just have to play one. No, you got to play two or three in PT's case. And I also want to acknowledge the fact that both MK Leo and Cosmos have gone on record to say that Aegis is incredibly difficult at the top level. Now, if I had to guess why, it's because the character's recovery is so bad that you're susceptible to dying at literally any point, which is really scary. But that doesn't really translate to difficulty for me. It's just, yeah, this is a really scary way to play the game because I could die at any moment, but that's not hard. That's just your character having a massive weakness. And again, I could be massively misinterpreting that. So I'm curious what y'all Aegis players think. And we have finally reached the normal hard tier, and I should mention that I just forgot to put Piranha Plant and Dr. Mario on the list. They're in baby second fighting game, so sorry if you're waiting for a hot take there. It ain't coming, and in the normal hard tier, there's only three characters I would potentially move down, which would be Robin, Jigglypuff, and Falcon. Now, for Falcon, I honestly just don't have a ton of faith in this character, and I think you need to be doing some of the more intense tech stuff in order to have success with them, as well as you just need to be very careful with your knee placements. If you're mindful about your knee, you can do some pretty great things, but if you're uncautious, you're going to get absolutely destroyed. Jigglypuff is a character that just doesn't do a ton of damage. A lot of her damage is going to come from her winning neutral over and over again, or getting some pretty big edge guards, and that's why I have her in here. You just need to study a lot of flow charts in order to have success. You need to slowly pick away at people, and even though she's not mechanically very difficult, like at all, I do want to reward the Puff players for the work that they have to put in there just studying the flowcharts, as well as you have to be very good with rest, because if you miss the rest, you're just gonna die. And then finally, you're gonna have Robin. Now, she might be in here just because she's bad and slow, and I'm overvaluing her because of that, but I do think that added factor of resource management gives her a little bit of an edge over the other sword characters. So characters that I would potentially move up from the normal hard tier would be Lucario, Belmont, and Olimar. For Lucario, it's literally just about aura. A lot of characters in this game are killing you incredibly early, so it's up to the Lucario players to be able to make the most of their stocks, and once they get that max aura, they have to be able to actually capitalize on it. And that can be extremely difficult when you have to make the most of your character when you are one hit away from dying, so I could see him being moved up because of that. But outside of that, Lucario isn't super difficult in my opinion. Then you're going to have Belmont. Now, Belmont, you have to be incredibly precise with some of their stuff, the aerials especially, and you have to know a lot of setups, but a majority of the gameplay is I'm going to throw the cross, I'm going to throw the axe, I'm going to down B at ledge, and that stuff you just rinse and repeat over and over and over again. But there are a handful of setups that are extremely difficult, and you do need to have precision with your aerials, and because of that, I could see him being moved up super hard. Belmont's like a combination of PhD required and baby's first fighting game, and the average of that is in the normal hard tier. And then finally, you're going to have Olimar, and he's in here because of pigment management. Now, I do say, I think there's a little bit of bias in here because I think pigment management is so insanely easy. It's literally patterns and colors, but when it comes to the kill, it can be fairly difficult, especially if you're opponent has a bunch of aerials that can just destroy the pigment. It doesn't necessarily need to be aerials, but you get what I'm saying, and they're also aware of that. It can be very difficult to get the kill because you're just not going to have the right pigment at your disposal, and you have to make the most out of maybe the incorrect pigment. Maybe you got to go for a kill with the white. It's not ideal, but you have to be able to pull it off. But in the mid percents and the lower percents, it doesn't matter what pigment I have. If I up smash you, you're still taking 60, 50%. I still have these insane aerials, and it's not that hard to circle, or rather cycle, till you get a purple. So I can see the arguments for Olimar being a little bit higher because pigment management is something that most characters, and by most I mean all characters, just don't have to worry about. But I don't think it's enough of a big deal for him to be higher. Editing fruit block, I decided to move Wolf from the super hard tier down to the normal hard tier. He just has a lot of bread and butters that are fairly simple, as well as some incredible moves that he can throw out in the neutral that some of the characters above him just don't have as much. Now, if you want to say he's super hard, I mean, that's fine. I literally had him in there before, but I'm going to move him down. We have arrived at the super hard tier, and I am very confident with all of these choices. I could maybe see them moving up, but I don't think any of these characters should be moved down. You're going to have Marth. This one's fairly self-explanatory. You just need to have max spacing at pretty much all times, and if you're not being very precise, you're not winning. Sephiroth, it's kind of the same thing. His stuff is just so committal that you need to be sure that when you're throwing out a move, you're not going to get punished for it, because if you get punished for it, you're probably going to die in the next two interactions because he's so light. Snake and Duck Hunt, there's just so many things that you need to be managing constantly, and while especially for Snake a lot of his buttons are very good and he's able to get away with a lot of stuff, and having a frame one out is always nice, there's just an extra level of awareness that you need to have when playing these characters. Fox, people do not give Fox enough credit because at the low level especially, Fox is one of the easiest characters in the game because he just dash attack 30 times in a row, but the combo routes that Light has and the extensions that he's able to make with this character, as well as the confidence that you need to have with your callouts, because Fox doesn't have too many ways to kill you. The ways that he has to kill you are very good, but you need to be very quick and you need to be very precise when you're doing them, so that's why he's here. Wario, I think it's pretty difficult, but Waft is the thing that's going to keep him in this tier because, yeah, you might have some insanely difficult combos and you might have some really difficult neutral, but also I have a move that has super armor on it that kills you at like 30%. I know it only happens every 2 minutes, but no other character in the game has that, so I think it's fine. And Sora, he has some really difficult combo extensions, and if I were to move up a character, I probably would move Sora up to the more difficult tier, and you'll see that in just a second. Arguably, he could be in the hard part, is in the lab, but I think Sora needs these extensions, whereas Steve, Kazuya, Rob, they don't need them as much. They could be down much lower, and Sora's difficulty comes from his combos, but also his floatiness in the neutral. You just have to play him a lot differently, and you need to know so many different extensions. Your favorite editor back at it again. I've decided to move Lucas down from the PhD tier just because I do think that this character is really difficult and some of his combo routes are insane, specifically with the snake stuff that you need to do to make him viable, but also you can PK fire a lot, so I'm going to keep him here. Now we are at the PhD required tier, and this is where it gets difficult. These are the hardest characters in the game, bar none in my opinion. Starting off with Bayonetta, you need to know so much. A PhD amount of work needs to go into this character for all the different combo routes that you're going to need on all the different characters in this game, as well as her neutral. I think is very taxing to play because I think the patient style of Bayonetta is the correct style of Bayonetta, and obviously we're looking at things through the correct lens, and for all those reasons, I think she's definitely up here. You're going to have Mega Man. Again, very slow character. You need to be very patient when you're playing. You also need to have insanely good item play, or you're just not going to have a ton of success because Metal Blade is incredibly important. You need to be whittling people down with pellets, and you cannot get over committal. You're going to have Shulk. I mean, this one's fairly self-explanatory. You just need to manage Monado Arts. If you're able to do that, you're going to have a good time. If not, it's definitely going to be a struggle. Zero Suit, you need to be constantly winning neutral, and she's very good at winning neutral, but the amount of times that you just need to take away your opponent, getting one hit here, getting one hit there, and then exploding at the right moment can be incredibly difficult, and you need to be very precise with this character at all times. Pichu is just the glass cannon. Some of his combo routes are fairly difficult as well, but if you're messing up in neutral with Pichu, you are losing neutral. Even if either character aren't getting hit for like 20 seconds, you're throwing out T-Jolls, maybe you throw out a back air or two, you're losing neutral there because like 6 of your sock is just gone. I know it doesn't seem like a lot. You take 10, 20%, but Pichu's dying at like 80%, 100% at the latest versus most good players, and because of that, you just need to be super careful all the time. Next up, you're going to have Joker. The only thing that's keeping Joker out of the hardest tier, in my opinion, are Arsene and Gun. Gun is just a really, really strong tool in neutral, and I know you can camp out Arsene. If you're hitting Arsene, he goes away, but you still got to deal with the big bad man. You still got to outplay Joker once or twice or camp him for like 20 seconds straight, and if he hits you once, you just explode. But outside of those things, Joker is a very difficult character with insanely hard combo routes, and you need to be incredibly precise. Diddy Kong, I think, is the character in the game that suffers the most from analysis paralysis. He just has so many options at all times, especially when you have Banana in hand, and I think that can be a hindrance to him. Now, it's also one of the reasons why he's such a good character, but you need to know as the Diddy Kong player what is the correct thing to go for. How are you going to be using your Banana? Also, you need to be pretty creative with the recovery, because if an opponent has a lingering aerial, you're just going to be dying a lot off stage, and for those reasons, I think he's up here. And finally, you're going to have Link. The only reason that Link isn't in the top tier is because Nair air is just a really good move and you can throw it out a ton, but everything else about him is very difficult. And we have arrived at our final tier, the average proof block sub. These are the characters that are the hardest in the game or take the most skill, however you want to phrase it. And the first one, this is the only tier that's kind of ordered, by the way, is going to be Sonic. Now, in terms of tech skill, there's nothing too difficult for Sonic. I'd probably have him in the normal hard tier, maybe even a little bit lower. But the mental fortitude that you need to have with this character is ludicrous. Imagine you're playing an entire term. Let's say you get into the top 8. I know a lot of us can't visualize it, but let's just pretend you get into the top 8. Let's say you had to play 7 sets before that. Even if you 2-0 and then 3-0 all your opponents, you have to be playing like double the amount of time that everyone else is getting into the top 8 because your games are just naturally so much slower. You need to have an insane amount of discipline, as well as the thing I brought up earlier with Jigglypuff. One of the reasons that Sonic is so good is because if he's able to catch you off stage, you're just going to die. He's the best edgeguarding character in the game if you have done your research and if you know your flowcharts, like Sonic's does, for example. The reason that Sonic is so scary and he's killing you off of one hit is because he is covering so many options at the same time. And yeah, that's great that your character can do that, but Sonic is only able to do that if you put in the work, you've studied, and if you have the fortitude to be able to capitalize off of it. Our next character is going to be Pikachu. The only reason he isn't higher is because Quick Attack is one of the best moves in this game, as well as Teasel just being really strong in neutral. But in terms of combo routes, Pikachu is the second hardest character in the game, and I honestly don't even think that's much of a debate. He just has so much stuff that needs to know, and if you escape a Pikachu combo really early, he gets nothing. Let's say you escape a Korin combo halfway through, you're still taking like 30-35%. You escape a Pikachu combo right away, you're taking like 10%. You need to get the most out of every single hit that you have, and you need to be able to follow the DI and know the conversions for that follow-up DI, and also everything is character specific, and there's just so much work that needs to be put into this character. When executed properly, he's one of the best characters in this game, but if you are messing up, if you're letting these combo extensions slip away, you're just gonna get nothing. And again, the only reason he isn't higher is because Quick Attack is just really good. Our next character is Sheik, and this is pretty much the same thing I said about Pikachu, except she doesn't have Quick Attack. Her combos take a lot of reps, and she doesn't do a lot of damage on hit, but when you string everything together, you have a very strong damage output, as well as Sheik having kill confirms out the wazoo if you're very precise and know what to look for. And I want to make the distinction between characters that are hard in the lab and characters that are actually just hard, and the characters that are hard in the lab, Mario and Falco, I think are really good examples for this. Mario, you can just do 6 up airs and still get your 50%. Falco, you can just do your up tilt combos and still get a lot of percent. You don't need to do the super crazy stuff. I think the difficulty with these characters does come with the crazy extensions, but without that, they would just be in the baby's second fighting game tier or the baby's first fighting game tier, whereas Sheik and Pikachu, they need to make the most out of these combo extensions, and that's what separates the difficulty, at least for me. We are down to our final 2, the princesses for Mario. Technically, it's our final 3 because Daisy's here as well, but for our second hardest character in the game, it's going to be Rosalina and Luma. In order to make this character work at the top level, you need to essentially be playing 2 characters. The stuff that DeBuzz is able to do with Rosa is insane, but he has to put in so much work in order to make sure that not only Rosalina's in the right place, but also that Luma's in the right place. When you're juggling someone, you need to make sure that Luma's with you. When you're edge guarding someone, you need to make sure that Luma's able to cover some stuff. When you're ledge trapping, Rosalina's ledge trapping is really good if Luma's in the right place, and that's kind of the trend. If you're able to put Luma in the right positions, you're able to get a lot of value out of Rosalina, but if you're not able to do that and you're kind of throwing away Luma lives, you are going to be a significantly worse character who struggles so much more, because Rosalina without Luma is just not a great character. She's super light as well, so if you're getting clipped by 1 or 2 hitboxes the wrong way, you're just going to explode, and because of all those things and the amount of management that you need to put into her, I think she's the second hardest character in the game. And our final character, the hardest one in the game, the one that takes the most skill, and it's not even close in my opinion, is going to be Peach. Not only is she the hardest character in the game mechanically, at least in my opinion, but you also need to have such a high level of microplay that other characters just don't really need to have. Peach's stats aren't super great. In fact, they're really bad. On both the air and the ground, she's not a quick character. It's difficult for her to get in. So what Peach needs to do is whiff punish. And luckily, she's the best whiff punish character in the game because float allows your micro spacing to be phenomenal. But you need to be on point at all times because Peach's burst range isn't super big. You need to capitalize off your opponents, and once you finally get that hit, you need to pull off some of the most crazy execution combos in the entire game. And when done correctly, Peach is a phenomenal character. We've all seen Mutes in the last stock, last hit scenarios. It seems like you can't touch him, and when he's playing correctly, you really can't touch him. But that's because he's constantly weaving in and out, expertly avoiding every single hitbox thrown at him, and waiting for the right opportunity to strike. And that's what you got to do with Peach in order to make her work. And I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. The support has been absolutely unreal as of late. I'm not even going to pretend like I'm an expert on all 80 characters in this game. So if you see your player, or rather your character, in a spot that you don't agree with, please leave a comment down below. Keep it civil when you're arguing with people down there. And yeah, that's all I really got to say. Be sure to sub, all that yada yada, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.